Welcome to episode 13 of the HYPEothetically Speaking podcast, where we put the hype in every hypothetical scenario. This is going to be a college football episode, our second college football episode. So we're bringing back Logan Bell and Mitch Fuller, and this is the debut of U of M, Hail Hail, Michigan Go Blue fan, Logan Gerbig. Fellas, how are y'all doing?
Man, I can't complain.
Happy to be here.
Pumped, man. College football's here, baby.
I am thrilled. I know y'all are, as some of the biggest college football fans I know. But earlier today, the preseason coaches poll came out. We haven't got the AP poll yet, but the coaches poll is out. Look, for Logan and I, Georgia is at 3. For the other Logan, Michigan is at 6. Actually, I think for the rest of the podcast, you guys will be referred to as Mr. Gerbig and Mr. Bell. But Mitch, I'm sorry to say, but Georgia Tech just isn't there, man. But
Yeah, we're not.
I do want to hear your thoughts on the rest of this poll. Maybe a team that kind of stood out to you, like where they were.
Okay. Yeah. I'll give you two. I'll give you one who I think I was surprised at how high they were rated, and then one who I was surprised at how low they were rated. I like Utah, but 8 seems a little stout for them. If I'm being honest with you, they're not going to be there at the end of the year, I don't think. Now, granted, they played a lot of good ball last year, but they have to do it again this year. USC is going to be much improved in the Pac-12. We'll learn a lot about Oregon and Utah week 1, both SEC matchups. So those are 2 games I'm super excited to watch. So I would say Utah seems a little high to me. And I really like Kentucky. Do I think they're going to beat Georgia? No. I think they could, but I don't think they are. Look, I'm going to say it. Y'all lost a lot. Like, I'm not like, y'all are going to win the game, but.
For sure. Probably by 30.
But Kentucky's a pretty good team. Will Levis is a really good quarterback, actually.
Yeah.
I love Will Levis. I think he is a really good quarterback. And so I think Kentucky at the end of the year is going to be higher up on this list. I think they're going to be maybe buzzing around the top 15.
Mitch, like, I was ready to talk about how the Pac-12 is kind of wide open, but I now have to ask, what are your thoughts on Will Levis putting mayo in his coffee?
Brew.
Sorry, putting what?
Yeah. He puts mayonnaise
that.
in his coffee.
Nasty.
I mean, honestly,
Disgusting.
I think that makes him more of an animal than I even imagined.
Because that dropped him down from, like, I don't know, maybe QB 5 in the draft next year to me, down to like QB 34. Like, I just think that's so disgusting.
That's probably why he left Penn State. They found out he was doing that. They kicked him out. They said, "No, we can't have that in the Big Ten."
Mayo in coffee. Just
hey,
think
it
about
works.
that.
Apparently, he's pretty good at QB.
Is that dog in him?
I think so.
Okay.
He faces adversity every morning.
Oh my goodness.
He wakes up. Okay, that's fair. I love the refreshing take on it, because it just disgusted me. But Mr. Gerbig, I want to hear your thoughts. Maybe if you could give us a team that's too high and a team that's too low.
Yeah, team that's too high. I've said this all off season because the hype has been extremely high for them. It's Texas A&M. They're too high. I know they beat Alabama last year. I watched a few Texas A&M games last year, particularly their game at Colorado, and it was just terrible. And I know they got this big time recruiting class from all that oil money they got out there in Texas, but it takes time. Like, it's not just 1 year. So they're definitely, I think they'll be a good team. I just think 7's a bit high for them. I can understand where Mitch is coming from with Utah being high. I think Utah showed us they're really solid last year. We just got to see, are they going to be like a top 15 team, or are they really going to be like a top 10 or 5 team? We don't quite know yet. So for me, A&M's too high. And then I was also going to mention Kentucky as well. There's a couple teams in the SEC I like that are kind of just hovering lower right now. Kentucky being one of them. And kind of like Mitch alluded to, Georgia lost a lot, right? They're still going to be incredible this year, but they did lose a lot. And so if you look at the East, right, you've got Florida, Kentucky, and Tennessee. Those are going to be the people competing to win the East over Georgia. And Tennessee, I think you can throw out the window because they got to play Bama and Georgia. So that's just, I mean, I think Tennessee will be good this year, and they're one of my dark horse teams, but there's no way they're beating both of those teams. They could upset either Georgia or Bama, but not both. Whereas Kentucky has only got to play Georgia. I think Kentucky's West games are Mississippi State and Ole Miss. So that's much more favorable matchups from the West for them. And then also Georgia, Kentucky is second to last game of the year. Maybe it's like mid to late November. So if Kentucky's only got one loss heading into that late November game at Kentucky and Georgia's undefeated, that's going to be, college game day, huge atmosphere and crowd. And we've seen Kentucky have some major upsets at home before. So that's a team I like as well, down there lower in the rankings.
You mentioned that there's a few SEC teams that are kind of low. Sounds like SEC bias isn't a thing anymore. That's just kind of what you told me in that. Okay. Well,
and I'll say Tennessee was going to be the other one. They're not even in the coaches poll. I think they will be in the AP poll when it comes out, but Tennessee will definitely be improved this year for sure.
Yeah. Even without Cole Kendall on the podcast, we're still pro Tennessee here, which we'd love to see. But Mr. Bell,
I'm pro Hendon Hooker. I really like Hendon Hooker. I think he's the second best quarterback in the SEC this year.
We'll just wait until Nico gets there and Logan
behind
Cole can just keep talking about him.
And Will Levis.
I think him and Hooker 2-3 right there. I think they're 2 and 3 right behind Bryce Young. So
Mr. Bell,
it'll be fun.
Mr. Bell, I want to hear who you have too high and too low, but I think I might also need you to address some of the UGA disrespect that's been going on.
Oh yeah, I was gonna do that. They literally everybody said the same thing about Arkansas last year. They were top 10 and they literally didn't score. We might hang 50 on Kentucky. It might be really bad. They're not good. Like good. I cannot believe they're getting that much hype. Like we might win by 50.
See, I wouldn't say 21 is that much hype. And let me say,
fair.
I don't think they're too low. I think they probably are about right until we see them play. But I was just looking at teams I see lower in that poll that could make some noise. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, that's fair. I think as far as a team too low, I think it's pretty obvious, a pretty easy answer for me. Like, no way USC is going to finish 15. Like, I think they might even make the playoffs. I was very surprised that they were ranked 15. I think when we did the last episode, I think I actually had them in my playoffs at 4. So I understand they got a lot of transfers, new coach. You can't throw them in the top 5 from the start, obviously, but I was shocked that they were all the way down at 15. And then a team I think is a little too high is number 6, Michigan. I think they're just a little too high. They had about a player and a half last year that was good. And they're both in the NFL now. So they lost a lot. Ohio State got a lot better. I think they're a little overrated last year too. I just think they're a little too high.
Hey, Logan, let me ask everybody else. I think this isn't about Michigan. Isn't USC like 15th every preseason, if I'm not mistaken? I think pretty much every year they're right about 15, and then by week 3 they're unranked. So not saying that's going to happen this year. I'm just saying, it seems like they're always right there around 15 every single preseason.
I love Caleb Williams.
He is very good. So yeah.
Oh, Mr. Gerbig, I was going to ask you to talk about
Do I have
USC.
to address that? Okay.
But then I was like, he also mentioned Michigan. I wanted to hear a rebuttal for both because I knew how you felt.
Okay. So I wanted to bring the USC thing up because I have an extreme dislike for all these teams like USC that are always ranked preseason, no matter how good or bad they were the prior year, right? And it's the exact opposite for like Michigan. Like 2020, we were terrible, so we were unranked last year and made the playoff. But anyway, so I just dislike the teams that are automatically penciled in top 15. Anyway, to rebuttal Logan.
Hold on, let me add one thing. Start JJ. You start JJ. You win the national championship.
Oh, he's switching.
That's my guy.
Okay.
That's my guy. But you're not gonna start him. You know that's my guy though.
So if Cade starts, we're too high. If JJ starts, we're too low.
If Cade starts, you shouldn't be ranked. If he starts, if JJ
Oh,
starts, I
love
like
you.
it. That's my
you,
guy.
dude. You're so
JJ
funny.
is my guy.
No, but my rebuttal would be, I think in this coaches poll, we're right around where we should be. I think we're like borderline top 5. And I mean, if this shakes out to be the AP poll as well, then week 2, we're going to be top 5 because you got Ohio State and Notre Dame playing week 1. So I think that 6 to 8 range is probably where we start, which is great considering we were unranked to start the season last year. And you know, if we only lost a player and a half, then we're going to be pretty dang good this year. That means we're bringing back 20 and a half players, 20 and a half starters.
You guys no-showed a game. You guys no-showed a whole game.
I wouldn't say no-showed, but I mean, you know. But anyway, yeah, and we lost great players, obviously, but we've got a lot coming back that people don't necessarily know about yet outside of Michigan and maybe some Big Ten people. And I think, excuse my dog, but yeah, I think there's going to be some people that get onto the national stage this year. Super excited. Really, the biggest improvement's going to be offense, and kind of like you're talking about with the whole JJ thing. Regardless of who starts at quarterback, our offense is going to be a lot better. And if JJ starts, then yeah, that our ceiling's even higher with him. So I think we're right about where we should be, and then we'll see what happens.
You said Ali is there. Ali is making an appearance on the pod.
Oh, I didn't. He was drinking his water, and I didn't know if y'all could hear him. So,
no, man, I'd love to hear his thoughts on Michigan, but if he doesn't want to share, that's okay.
Yeah, I don't know if he's
okay. That's fine
right now.
Well, while we're talking about Michigan, Mitch, I would love to hear your thoughts. Maybe we can get a tiebreaker going either way. Is Michigan too high or too low?
Oh, okay.
Sorry to put you on the spot, but
no, you're good. I like this Michigan team. I like JJ. You know, I was watching the video of him slinging it like yesterday, I think, and it looks nasty. Really good. And I think he's gonna be a stud for y'all. I think y'all are probably a top 10 team. We'll see if you're right on the bubble. That's going to be tough. See, I also think Oklahoma's a little too high right now, just with all they lost. So I don't think Oklahoma finishes the season in the top 10. Y'all definitely do. I don't see, I mean, something really bad would have to happen if y'all don't. So I think this is a fair ranking right now, just with all the turnover that we saw, different teams losing a lot to whether that be the draft or whether that be the transfer portal, different teams gaining a lot because of the transfer portal. So I'm gonna say that Michigan's in a pretty solid spot. I think they're right around where they're supposed to be, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, and I'll add, like, I see a lot of similarities with Michigan and Georgia in the fact that both teams lost a lot on defense, right? Michigan lost several really good starters in the NFL. Georgia lost several really good starters in the NFL. But there were a lot of guys who technically weren't labeled a starter that contributed a lot. Georgia had many guys like that. Michigan had many guys like that. So now those guys just get to step into a full-time role where they've already proven what they can do. So I think it'll be very similar for both teams. Like, yes, there'll be somewhat of a drop-off because those were, you know, Georgia was one of the best defenses of all time. Michigan had a great defense as well. So there will be some drop-off, but they're still going to be really solid there. And then I'll talk up the offense to y'all. Our offense is so deep, man. Like, hopefully the nation will get to see it throughout the year. And if JJ starts, they definitely will. So yeah, just such a deep wide receiver room, really, really good running back room. Probably, I think I saw a poll of like the top 25 running backs in the country, and we had the number 3 running back and the number 15 running back, which was like the highest duo in the country. So biasly, if that's a word, I will say we have the best running back duo in the country, and one of the deepest wide receiver rooms. So
yeah, even though you lost Hassan Haskins, who's the running back? I think you were saying last year at some point that's an incredible dual threat.
Yeah. So, and he's not even our starter. So after Haskins, the number 2 guy last year was Blake Quorum, really short, shifty back, really fast. He was incredible. And he actually had just under 1,000 yards. So Haskins had about 1,300 yards and 20 touchdowns. Blake Quorum had like 950 on the ground and, a couple other receiving touchdowns, but Quorum was out for a couple games. So we actually would have had 2 1,000-yard rushers last year if he didn't get hurt. And then our number 3 running back last year, Donovan Edwards, was a 4 or 5-star coming out of high school, depending on the service you looked at. And he had a game against Maryland last year. This was right before Ohio State at Maryland, 10 catches for 170 yards and a touchdown as a 3rd-string running back. He also had some touchdowns on the ground throughout the season. So yeah, he's the guy I told you. I was like, this is the next Alvin Kamara, right? I was all hyped. So him and JJ are like, they're tight because they came in the same class. So that's the future right there. I'm pumped for it.
Well, that was the Michigan hype train, but it sounds like we're on board with the coaches as far as where they should be ranked. Mitch, I'm going to let you open on this one. It sounds like I'm going to guess all in agreement with the coaches about not giving Georgia Tech a vote in the coaches poll at all. But I just want to give you the floor to kind of air out your grievances over the past few seasons.
Yeah, it's never been a great life as a Georgia Tech fan. Now, I have seen 2 10-win seasons as a Tech fan, and those have been wonderful. 2014 was a magical time. We finished the season, I think, 6th in the nation. Barely missed out on the first playoff. We lost our 3 games on the season by a combined 11 points, I believe, or 14. So like, that was amazing. But then since then, we've just been so bad. The Jeff Collins era, how he has succeeded in like changing like the culture of like our program. And I like the way, we have increased social media. There's a lot of like branding going on, but he's just a bad football coach. Like, he's a really bad football coach. He cost us at least 2 games last year because of poor clock management, including a game at Clemson. Like, we were there. We had every opportunity to beat Clemson in Death Valley. And we couldn't do it because he managed the clock extremely poorly. We're going to win 2 games this year. 2. Western Carolina, fingers crossed, and Duke probably. I think we still beat Duke. Other than that, we're going to go 2-10. Jeff Collins will be fired. And if he isn't fired, I will be resigning as a Georgia Tech fan. I'll be putting in my resignation because I just can't handle that. It will not be Michigan. I'm sorry. It's not.
Well, if it's Iowa, then we'll just beat y'all 42-3 in the Big Ten championship every year. I mean, you got to go somewhere better.
It's not going to go to Georgia. It's not going to go to Michigan. Who knows? But
there's Dakota State.
No, I hate them. Because I'm going to be a Georgia Southern
Utah
because I'm already kind of a Georgia Southern fan.
Got it, baby.
So go Eagles. Georgia Southern would beat this Georgia Tech team this year. I have no doubt in my mind. They are better than we are right now. Our roster is devoid of talent. Jahmyr Gibbs, probably the best player we've had on campus since Calvin Johnson. I will say that. I believe that.
Over Stephen Hill.
Hey, he was actually pretty good at Tech.
Yeah.
He was terrible for the Jets. But
horrible.
Absolutely so bad. But I am super happy that I got to watch him in a Tech uniform, but I'm even happier that he realized he needed to leave and he went somewhere he can win because he deserves it. He is an incredible player, and he being on our roster, he's wasting away. So Jeff Collins will be gone at the end of the season unless somehow we win like 9 games. which won't happen. It just
Yeah.
will not happen. So I'm excited to see who our next coach is. There's no point in me watching Georgia Tech football this year. So that's pretty much all I have to say about that.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, Mitch, I was looking the other day and man, it's just the non-conference is brutal, man. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
obviously you got
Ole
Georgia every
Miss.
year, then you got Ole Miss at UCF's tough too. So it's just a brutal draw this year for Tech in non-conference, and then obviously in conference, ACC was pretty good last year. So
open with Clemson.
Yeah.
That's literally our first game of the season. Clemson, Western Carolina, Ole Miss. Like, then we got to go play Pittsburgh. Like, yeah, we're going to be bad.
Well, hopefully you'll get your wish and Jeff Collins will be fired, but then you may be demanding a super max in free agency to join a new team if he's not. But we will provide updates as those happen about Mr. Fuller's impending free agency as a fan. But I do want to hear from Mr. Bell if you have anything to add. Do you think Georgia Tech can maybe get more than 2 wins?
I don't know if they win 2 games. They should, but that's definitely their ceiling.
Yeah, I think the over under 2.5 is pretty tough. Like I'd probably take under, but
they've won three seasons in a row.
They should beat Duke. They should beat who's the Western?
Western Carolina.
Western Carolina. Yeah, they should beat Western Carolina, but that's probably it. I mean, Ole Miss is cool,
Western Carolina and Duke.
but I mean, Ole Miss doesn't scare me at all. I don't think they're going to be that good this year, but Tech probably won't pull that one out. Maybe 3 wins. I don't know the rest of their schedule. Maybe they'll pull another one out. I hope they win 6. I hope that Collins guy stays forever. That would be awesome. I hope they win 6-7 games this year. I'm all in for that.
Just
give him a lifetime
game.
contract. Yeah, give him a lifetime. Get him in a bowl game. Let him win that bowl game. He'll probably be playing Michigan in the Outback Bowl. No, I'm just kidding. Get him in a bowl game though, and give that man a lifetime contract.
Oh man, Mitch, I just remembered we talked about this before. I want to hear who you think or who should be the head coach next for Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. My internet's kind of being weird, so I hope this comes through. But
oh boy,
Dan Mullen.
Dan Mullen. Oh.
He's coaching at a high school about an hour in Atlanta. His son is enrolled there. He has a house on Lake Oconee, an hour east of Atlanta. I think he's a great person. He's going to win football games. And he has proven that he can win football games at Mississippi State, at Florida. So, you come into Atlanta, which is a recruiting hotbed. You should be able to pull talent, and he should be able to build us up to at least above 500 seasons in a conference that's not super strong.
I actually wanted Dan Mullen before we got Harbaugh, and I'm glad that didn't work out. But Mullen has proven that he can win games in the SEC, so that would be a great hire for Tech.
Yeah, but the real test is, can he win games coaching Lake Oconee Academy? That's the real question. With a man like Connor Domaleski working in the same building as him, can he?
Oh my
win
gosh, I didn't
games?
even realize that. That's funny.
No, it's cool. Maybe we'll get some like an inside scoop from Mr. Domaleski, from Coach Dom. See if he can schedule us something with Dan Mullen, so we can just have Mitch give his recruiting pitch for why he should be the next coach of Georgia Tech. But that's probably the max that I will allow Georgia Tech to be talked about. Actually, that's a lie. We're probably going to talk about them later, because I think when we make week 1 picks, we will discuss their matchup with Clemson, probably very briefly. But I think to this point, we will do our preseason top 5. We can do it like a big reveal where we each give our 5th team and then our 4th and then go up. So I hope you guys are prepared for that. So we're going to start with Mr. Bell. Who is the number 5 team on your preseason poll?
Like Clemson. I'd probably have them. I know they were 4, I think, in the Culture Bowl. They're probably 5. I don't believe in DJ at all, but I love Shipley, their running back. And they can't be as bad as they were last year. They were terrible. There's no way they're that bad again. I'd have them back in the I'd have them at 5.
Mr. Gerbig.
Yeah, I've got Notre Dame at 5 right now. I think they are really rallying behind the new coach. What's his name? Hamilton. I forget his first name,
I don't
but
remember.
I think they're really rallying behind him. I think everybody really likes him. I don't know what their quarterback situation is going to be, but I mean, it's Notre Dame. They're always solid. Obviously, last year they lost that game to Cincy, and I think they lost one other game. So they were, I think, 11-2 after bowl games last year. Really solid. I mean, it's Notre Dame. They're always going to be solid. And so I've got them starting 5.
Mr. Fuller. Who is your number 5 team?
There's definitely, I think, 3 teams who could easily shove into the spot. It's figuring out what rotation of 4, 5, 6. I'm gonna go with Clemson at 5. Again, kind of like what Logan said, I really love Will Shipley. DJ has to be better, but there's also Cade Klubnik who's in there battling as well, and so we might get to see him, young freshman guy. They have to be better, like Logan said, than they were last year, and so I'm going to put them at 5 for.
Okay, I'll give mine. I'll ride with Notre Dame at 5. It's Marcus Freeman as the head coach. I remember when he got hired, I liked him a lot, just immediately. So I'll ride with Notre Dame at my 5 as well, partially because I don't think that I have the confidence to take Notre Dame over Michigan while Logan Gerbig is in my presence. I don't think I could say that out loud, but Mr. Bell, who's your number 4 team?
Probably sticking with what I said last episode of who I think will finish 4. I'd have USC at 4 in my top 10. I just love that they went out and basically paid everybody and got all the transfers. I just think it works.
That's why this video is getting clicks, because Logan Bell said USC 4.
Well, and it's also because they literally will be 13-0. That's a lock. They're undefeated. They'll probably be number 4. They'll be in the play nobody. They have to beat Utah, and that's it. And they're 13-0, and they're in the playoff.
We're sleeping on Utah now.
That's pretty easy to do in the Pac-12. Like, they literally just win your games like they should, and they'll be fine, and they'll probably be in number 4 at the playoffs. Their schedule was harder, but it's not.
Pac-12's had 2 playoff teams in the history of the playoff. Washington and
I think
Oregon.
Did Oregon get in at all?
Yeah, first year. First year. Yeah, with Mariota. So
they're due.
It's an easy conference, but they've had 2 playoff teams ever.
They always just beat up on each other in the last few weeks.
Yeah, because they're all horrible.
I know, but you gotta have a champion. They always have a 2-loss champion. So
exactly.
Yeah, and then also USC went 4-8 last year. So 4-8 to 13-0 would be the greatest comeback in the history of sports.
But it's also it's like new coach, new quarterback, new wide receiver. It's new everything. It's not really. It's not the same team. But I know what you're saying.
But there's a lot of same players. I mean, there is Caleb Williams and Lincoln Riley and all that, but the majority, over 50%, is going to be the same team. So,
no, for sure. I just love the Williams. They got Jordan Addison.
Yeah,
I think that's all.
That was the stupidest. I
think that's all you need to win the Pac-12.
No,
that's how low. That's how low I think of the Pac-12. I think you only need those 2 players to win it. That's how bad the Pac-12 is.
Mr. Gerbig, I don't believe you'll be picking a Pac-12 team for your number 4 team.
Number 4, Michigan. I've got us at number 4. I think last year it was Georgia, Bama, everybody else. That was clear. And I think this year it's going to be a little tighter. I still think Michigan will be right there in the hunt, just below that top 3 that we'll get to in a second. But yeah, I've got Michigan at 4.
Mitch, who do you got at 4? If we have,
I'm going to say Michigan as well. Oh. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can now. Yep. Sorry.
Okay. I don't like Notre Dame transitioning head coaches. Like, it is going to be a little bit. going to be big for them. So I think I'm going to go with Michigan at 4. If McCarthy looks like he's going to play, then Michigan's going to be a very tough team to beat this season.
Yeah, I'm going to ride with Michigan at 4 as well. Mostly just because y'all told me Texas A&M is not going to be number 7, and I'm very out on Clemson. I don't think they'll be as bad as they were last year, but I don't think that they're deserving of a top 5 spot. So we're going to ride with the Go Blue. We're going to ride with the Blue. Probably nobody ever says that. So I'm sorry, Logan, probably embarrassing
okay.
you, but
no, on that note though, I'll address this real quick. Don't ever tell a Michigan fan, go Big Blue. Cause that's Kentucky.
Okay.
That's not Michigan.
It's
Big
fair.
Blue is Kentucky. But no, you're riding with the Blue. I mean,
And Little Blue.
You didn't
Little
say Big Blue,
Blues.
but
Little
but,
Blues,
like,
Michigan.
no.
Yeah.
Just Go Blue.
No,
But
he
it's
had-
so
he
funny. I
had
get
a
so many
lot.
people that are like, "Oh, go Big Blue," that aren't fans.
He had a
I'm
lot
like,
to
I'm not
say.
a Kentucky fan.
He had a lot to say about Kentucky. I think he's a Kentucky fan. He brought him back up
That's
too.
true.
No. Oh,
I
dude,
think-
are you kidding me? I hate
think he's a-
Kentucky. Freaking Andrew Harrison and the Elite Eight. Get out of here.
Oh man, Logan's
stand
actually
Kentucky. All right.
Mr.
We're
Bell
actually
is
playing
actually
them
a
in
huge
basketball this
Kentucky
year.
basketball fan.
That's going to be huge because Kentucky's got one of the best centers in the country, and Michigan does. So I know that's different sport, but
Yeah,
that's going to be
and
a great game anyway.
No, we'll definitely do some college basketball stuff and get Mr. Skinner on here as well. But
Hey.
Mr. Bell, I believe in order, you got to give me your number 3 team right now.
Yes. Sticking with the coaches poll, actually, I think Georgia's number 3 vote is fair. I think that's probably exactly where I would have them right now. People are saying a lot. We also are we're still returning 7 starters on defense. Like we didn't lose as much as people think. And the whole offense is back. And we also are adding Arik Gilbert to that too. So our offense is going to be better. I think it's a switch this year. And our offense is going to be filthy. Whereas our defense was last year. But I think our defense still will be pretty solid. I mean, we've got 7 starters coming back. I mean, there's only 11 people on the field. So that's still a lot of starters coming back. So I'd have us at number 3. Also, Brock Bowers. I don't really think I need to say anything else. I think that's enough.
He's going to have to carry
4.
that offense.
I don't know.
Have to carry that offense.
Because you can now line up him and Darnell Washington, and they just made Arik a wide receiver, and we got Oscar Delp, who's the number 1. We got a lot of weapons. We have like 14 running backs too.
I think the biggest thing for me, well, sorry, we're doing our rankings, but we can dive in later.
Well, it's your turn to pick your number 3 team.
Okay,
So
3.
if it's going to be Georgia, feel free to talk about them.
Yeah, 3 is going to be Georgia for me. Like I kind of talked about earlier, definitely going to be a step back, but not huge, right? There's still going to be a lot of great players all around the ball. I think the biggest thing for Georgia to prove this year is going to be the run game. Georgia's always great running the ball, and I expect them to be great again. However, losing your top 2 backs is a lot different than just losing your top back, right? Losing Zamir White and James Cook is quite a bit. Like we lost Haskins and he was a beast, but we still got Quorum. And so, I think, is it McIntosh is probably going to be, he'll be
him
in
or
the
Milton.
mix, right?
Him or
And
Milton.
Yeah. So I think that's going to be the biggest thing because I'm not going to say Stetson can't win games with his arms, but Georgia does not want to rely on him throughout the season to win games with his arms. He had moments, right? Just like in the national championship game, he had moments, but they can't rely on him every big game to make big throws, I don't think. So if the run game can replace Cook and Zeus, then they'll be right on their way to another playoff.
We got Branson Robinson too at running back, so that will help. But I know what you're saying for sure.
But it's something that Georgia has honestly done multiple times over
Well,
the past decade.
I
Is
was
like
gonna say,
lose
too.
2 running backs
Yeah.
at once.
Yeah, and I mean
It's weird to
with
think.
Curly
We lost Chubb
and
and-
Michelle and Chubb
and
and like
Sony.
there's
Yeah.
always been that next guy, but I feel like this year there's not like,
Yeah.
this guy's next. Like after Gurley, it was like, this Michelle guy, this Chubb guy. It was like, there's this dude, right, that's coming. But I feel like there's not that guy that it's like, this dude's gonna be a dog. You know what I mean? So we'll see what happens. Somebody will step up. Georgia's always been good at running the ball, and they'll continue to be. But I just don't think there's going to be that level of elite running back that they've had for the last 8 years or whatever. So,
well, they're getting in. I forget his name right now. I'm saying the Jefferson quarterback from last year is going to come in and play running back. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but
I'm blanking on his name. But that guy's a stud. I watched some film on him in high school, and he's going to be a really, really, really good player.
Yeah. Mitch, while you're at it, why don't you just go ahead and give us your number 3 team? Malachi Starks. That's it.
Malachi Starks. Yeah. I'm going to stick with the program and go Georgia here. They're going to be right there in the playoff hunt at the end of the year. I'd be very shocked if they weren't. They are still loaded. Like Logan said, the offense should be really good this year as far as, weapons for Stetson to get the ball to. Their offensive line is going to be good again. Brock Bowers is an elite weapon. Get him the ball however you can. So I'm definitely going with Georgia at 3, and you never really know. They could wind up being 1. They could wind up being 8. We'll see how the season shakes out, but I think they're gonna be a good team.
Sweet. Well, I'm gonna be different. I'm gonna put Ohio State at 3, just because 1, I want to be a little different with this, but 2, I just think that Georgia deserves a little bit of a higher ranking coming off a national championship. Maybe it's a little bit of bias, but Ohio State's still gonna obviously be insane and have a very good chance to jump up to 1 or 2 by the time the season ends. Until Michigan beats them again. But I think coming off losing to Michigan, missing out on the playoff, and then coming in right to number 2, I understand why. But I'm gonna slot them in at 3 for me. So, Mr. Bell, I think I know how pretty much everyone else's top 2 is gonna go, but we'll just go ahead and do it. You are up.
Yeah, Ohio State number 2 for sure. They're gonna be stupid good this year. They might just beat everybody by 30 until they get to the playoffs. They're gonna be so good with all of their receivers and their quarterback. I just don't know what their defense will look like. But to be fair, that doesn't really exist in the Big Ten, but that could be a story for another day.
Man, I think you're mixing up the Big Ten and the Big 12.
No, they definitely doesn't exist in the Big 12.
I think you're mixing up conferences.
No, offense doesn't exist in the Big Ten,
right?
Except for Ohio State.
I don't know. I'm honestly being biased.
Have you ever watched like a Iowa?
Oh, it's bad.
Northwestern game, right?
Like a nice 10-7 slugfest.
Come on.
Yeah. I'm also being biased, and I watched the best of the Big Ten last year, and they didn't have either. But anyways, they're gonna be filthy good. They're my number 2 team.
42-27. It's like
he's getting mad at me.
No, I'm just 42 points against the number 2 team in the country. It's okay.
Fair.
And a
they're gonna be really good. I think it will come down to Michigan and Ohio State, whoever wins that game. But I think Ohio State's gonna run through everybody. I think they might run through whoever they play first round of the playoffs too, just depending on who it is. They're gonna be good.
That doesn't line up with your prediction from the last podcast where you said that Ohio State was going to be the 2, Georgia was going to be the 3, and Ohio State was going to beat them by 10. You said by 10 points in the first round, so that doesn't line up.
Depends on how it matches up. That's what I'm saying. Depends on how it matches up.
But you told me it's going to be that matchup.
I mean, I do think it is going to be Bama, Ohio State, UGA, and USC. I am pretty confident in that.
Okay. Well, Mr. Gerbig, go ahead and talk about Ohio State.
Number 2, Ohio State.
Okay.
I think the biggest thing for Ohio State this year is going to be their defense. I think they're bringing back 7 or 8 starters on defense, and so that's huge. When you already got a Heisman candidate coming back at quarterback, and your defense should improve, that's huge. Obviously, they lost 2 elite wide receivers to the NFL, and Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. And that's just going to pave the way for Jackson Smith and Jigba to be wide receiver 1. And he could have a Devontae Smith type season, right? Where it's like,
Mhm.
does Stroud win it, the Heisman, or does Njigba, right? So that'll be huge. They don't have they still have weapons after Njigba, but it's a lot different when Njigba's your wide receiver 3 versus your 1, right? Like when that dude is your wide receiver 3, you are stacked, right? With Wilson, Olave, and him. So they're still going to be good. They've got, I think, I forget his first name, but it's Marvin Harrison's son is at Ohio State, and he's supposed to be really good. So
It's Marvin Harrison Jr.
Junior, is it Junior?
I could be wrong. I think so.
Yeah, so he's probably going to break out
it's
this
a
year
junior.
behind Njigba. So they're still going to have weapons, obviously. And then they got Travion Henderson coming back in the backfield. He is arguably the best running back in the Big Ten. There's been a lot of debate about him versus Blake Quorum, who's better. That'll be settled on the field this year. But the defense should improve for them. And that, like I said, that's huge when you got a Heisman candidate quarterback already.
Mitch, anything to add in about Ohio State? I'm guessing Ohio State.
Yeah, Ohio State too. I mean, they've kind of said it's Stroud and those receivers and Henderson. That offense is going to be electric to watch. Again, mine was the same thing as Logan. Just is their defense going to be good enough on the big stage to play with an Alabama, to play with a Georgia, or even Michigan? Because obviously, if Michigan's offense is as good as it could be, then that's going to be games of the year right there. Is Ohio State most likely? So I'm excited to see what they can bring this year.
Yeah. Well, just because it lines up, I have Georgia at 2, just because I was different. But and then we all have Bama at 1, I guess, unless someone has some random surprise team. But it almost feels illegal at this point to not have Alabama at number 1 in a preseason poll. I think I was just looking back real quick, and it's been either Alabama or Clemson as far back as I can find. I haven't looked back
since 2015, maybe.
I'm about to click 2015, and 2015 preseason poll is Ohio State, TCU, Alabama. So the college football landscape has definitely changed a little bit, but obviously also not too much. Mr. Bell, talk to me a little bit about Alabama.
They'll be ranked number 1 to start the year.
All right, Mr. Gerbig, anything to add about Alabama?
I mean,
not much to say about them.
It's Alabama, like we said. I mean, they're going to be the best team to start the year, and probably will be the best team throughout the year. I mean, even last year, it was consensus all year that Georgia was the best team in the country. And then the SEC championship, it was like, wait a second, were we tricked, right? Like, what happened? I thought this was the best team, best defense ever, and all this stuff. And so I think that kind of made a step back for a second. And then sorry guys, but even the national championship game, Alabama controlled that game for most of 3 quarters, right? So, I mean, Georgia came up big when it mattered most, but I mean, up until the second half of last year, Bama was looking like the best team. So they're going to be elite once again.
Yeah, up until Jameson Williams got hurt.
Yeah, and not to mention Mechie in the SEC championship. Like if they wouldn't have lost Mechie and Williams, they probably would have won the Natty.
You could put an asterisk on a lot of different games, but I think because that was obviously a thing when the game happened. So I saw people saying stuff about, I forgot which Alabama national championship, maybe the first one of Saban, said there was some injuries in that game. But Mitch, anything to add in about Alabama?
Yeah, so I think this Alabama team is an extremely, extremely talented team. They always are. But, Jahmyr Gibbs, my guy at Tech, he's going to probably slot in starting running back for them. And he is a weapon. He can catch out of the backfield. He loves to work off screens. He's fast. And he was their A-Day game MVP, their spring game MVP.
I think we lost Mitch. Okay. I'm just going to roll as if we lost Mitch. Okay. All right. Well, good things about Alabama, per usual. Hard to say bad things about them, but they do have a matchup in week 2 against Texas on the road, who also, just might I add, Texas received a vote for the number 1 team in the coaches poll, just one single vote. Mr. Gerbig, I'll start with you for this one. What are your thoughts on Texas receiving a vote as the number 1 team in the nation on the coaches poll?
Yeah, that's absolutely insane. But we can look at their real ranking, and that is 18, right? Which may be a little more accurate. I think Texas is just like USC. It doesn't matter. They could go 0-12, and the next year they'd be 16th in the preseason poll, right? It's just automatic. USC and Texas every year. I think they went 5-7 last year, so pretty bad, right? Got Quinn Ewers from Ohio State, former 5-star. So I think they'll be good this year. I think they'll definitely be good. They'll be in the top portion of the Big 12 and compete for that conference. I don't see them making a jump to like the playoff, like Logan thinks USC might. But Texas will be good. Probably in the top 25 for most of the year. But I don't see them being like close to top 5 anytime soon. So yeah.
Yeah. It kind of blew my mind as well. But Mr. Bell, anything to add in about Texas?
Yeah, maybe it was a misinput or a typo or something. I don't know what happened with that. That blew my mind. They'll be all right. I think they'll go 9-3. They'll probably lose to Bama. They'll probably lose to Oklahoma. They'll probably lose to Baylor, and they'll probably win the rest of them. So, like, yeah, I mean, I'd probably spot on with what Logan said. Probably be in the top 25 for most of the year. They'll be all right.
We might not even need to worry about them until Arch Manning gets there. But
yeah,
while we are, I guess we'll talk about it now. I think we lost Mitch for the rest of the episode, but we're still rolling here with me and 2 Logans. So we'll name some dark horse playoff teams, starting with Mr. Gerbig, who's somebody you could see making the playoffs that I'll just say not in the, for the sake of not saying Michigan, not in the top 6 of the coaches poll.
Sure. I'll start by saying a Big 12 team. I think it could be Baylor. I think it could be Oklahoma, right? I mean, people will debate on if that would actually be a dark horse or not. Obviously, they're 9-10 preseason, but looking at last year, I mean, Baylor 12-2. Regular season, they were 10-2, won the Big 12 championship, and knocked Oklahoma State out of potentially a playoff berth by inches, if y'all remember that game. So I think a Big 12 team is a dark horse. Could be Baylor, could be Oklahoma, could be Oklahoma State. I've heard some good things about TCU, some rumblings about them. I think they might have been like 6-6, 5-7 last year. Not very great, but apparently they've got some guys this year that'll be pretty good. So they could be a sneaky pick to win the Big 12. I don't know about a dark horse playoff team, but a Big 12 team I think will be a dark horse. And then we kind of talked about Kentucky and Tennessee in the SEC. Tennessee, I pretty much said no because they got to play Bama and Georgia. But like we talked about with Kentucky, got to pull off one upset, right? And then, they'll have some other tough games. But if you pull off that one upset as Kentucky against Georgia, who knows, right? And then
Kentucky fan, I like it.
Big Blue. And then one other team I see way down there is Houston, actually. Obviously, they lost the AAC championship last year against Cincy. Don't think starting at 25, I don't think they can make the playoff. But they might be able to make some noise. They got their quarterback coming back. Obviously, Cincinnati lost a lot. It'll probably be them too at the top of the AAC. But starting that low, it's not possible. I don't think. Cincinnati had to start preseason number 6 or 7 last year and just got in at 4 undefeated. So I don't think it's possible for them to make it where they are. But watch out for Houston. I think they can make some noise.
Love to hear it. Mr. Bell, can you give me a different dark horse team, probably, hopefully?
Yeah. It's been a minute. I'm kind of in on the Pac-12. Whether that's USC or Utah, I think maybe just whoever wins that regular season game can sneak in. I didn't realize until just now that USC plays Notre Dame. But still sticking with it. Notre Dame, like, I don't think Notre Dame's won a big game since. We were talking about it in the car with Cole. They're like, it's been since like 90 they haven't won a big game, so they're not going to show up.
Nah, I would say they
still
won.
13
I would
and
say
0.
I would say Notre Dame won a big game in 2018.
No, it's crazy. They're like in New Year's Six bowls and playoff. They're like 0-10 with an average loss of like 20 points since like
I saw that.
It's bad.
Yeah.
But anyways, I think Pac-12. I think it very well could be USC. Utah's kind of in the same boat that they're gonna destroy Florida week 1, and that's really it.
I hope so.
Like after that, they just got to play USC. I think the winner of that game could sneak in for sure. Just basically because of the rest of the Pac-12. Like I think it's that bad. That whoever wins that game should go 12-0, and in theory 13-0 in the championship. And that Power 5 13-0, that should get you in the playoff.
Yeah, mine was going to be
Guaranteed.
Utah for the exact reasons that you were talking about for USC, just saying that they were going to win that game. And I looked, they play USC at home, but they do have a late season game at Oregon, which just sounds like recipe for a last minute, like Pac-12 team blowing their chances at a
like at
playoff
1
spot.
a.m.
Well, and
Yeah.
last year, obviously Utah upset Oregon last year, late in the season, and so they're going to want to get them back for that for sure. But we stand Cam Rising at Utah. They were dominating Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. If y'all watch that game, they were dominating. They were up by like 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
And then CJ Stroud and Jigba happened, and it was,
that was were we in
games.
we were in Alabama
we were watching that
watching
game together.
Yeah, because we were watching I forget what the place is called, but it was storming outside, so we couldn't leave. But yeah, that was insane. But the game kept flickering in and out.
The fact that Utah was in it with Ohio State in the Rose Bowl tells you, they were the real deal last year, and we'll see if they can continue on that this year. I like Utah a lot.
Fingers crossed for my Utes. Connor's a Utes fan now, right?
Oh yeah.
I forgot about that.
Because he knows with Gata he can't make the playoffs, so he's rolling with Utah with the Power 5.
Hey, never say never, man. He placed that bet.
Yeah, he did.
What was it?
If only the playoff would have extended this year, man.
Yeah.
Then those odds probably would. Probably still be insane odds, but a lot of quarterbacks transferred. I know we've already talked about Caleb Williams and Quinn Ewers. Surprisingly, probably for good reason, haven't talked about Spencer Rattler yet, but Mr. Gerbig, we'll start with you. Which transfer quarterback makes the biggest impact this season?
Yeah, I think everybody's going to say Caleb Williams, right? We talked about that and following Lincoln Riley over to USC. Outside of him, I really like Dylan Gabriel at Oklahoma. After UCF had their national championship run and McKenzie Milton and all that, this kid named Dylan Gabriel comes in the game, and he's a lefty. And as soon as he throws the ball, I'm like, that is a Tua clone. Like if you go watch Dylan Gabriel highlights, his throwing motion, everything about him, he looks just like Tua. And so since then, I've followed him at UCF. I like watching their games because of him. Threw for over 8,000 yards in his career there, 78 total touchdowns in 3 years there. He's solid. And so I think it's fair to assume Oklahoma's going to take a step back with all the changes, but Dylan Gabriel is a very good quarterback. And so I think he's going to be huge for them. Obviously, Bo Nix at Oregon will be a big impact too. They're going to need him to be great. If Logan Bell's talking about the Pac-12, right? If Bo Nix can be freshman Bo Nix at Auburn, they can make some noise, right? So we'll see what happens there. And then the last one I'll add is Casey Thompson at Nebraska. He was at Texas for 3 years, played in most of Texas's games last year, and coming off the best 3-9 season of all time, Nebraska needs to make some noise, and Casey Thompson should help them do that. They really need it, or else Scott Frost is gone. So,
yeah, Mr. Bell, any other transfer quarterbacks that you want to talk about?
No, that's most of them. Obviously, I think Caleb Williams is taking USC to the playoffs, so you definitely have the most impact for me. Kind of what I said on the last podcast too. I think South Carolina's gonna be terrible, but I really like Shane Beamer, and I think he can get through to Spencer Rattler. I don't think he's gonna have any, big time playmaker, 5-star playmakers around him, but I think he's gonna have a better year than he did last year. I think he'll find a way to get a lot out of him, but Caleb Williams definitely at the top.
So that's just very confusing to me, considering Lanier's own Zach Calzada transferred to Auburn,
True.
and I don't know why I'm not getting the hype from you about it.
I forgot about that. I'm gonna look it up. Is he
I think I
starting?
mentioned earlier in this episode, I watched Texas A&M versus Colorado last year.
Uh-huh.
Just go check that game out. That's all I'll
no.
say.
Starting.
No, I think we talked about. I think I've talked
That's
about.
all I gotta
this
say
before.
about the name you just
he beat
spoke of.
Bama. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, bro. He beat Bama.
He
He also
yeah.
He doesn't need to do anything
Let's see.
else. He beat Bama.
Yeah, well, he is projected starter, I think. Good for him. Hey,
It's big time.
hook 'em, baby. I'm all in. Auburn. That's the most impact. Zach Calzada, most impactful quarterback.
All right. Well, JT Daniels transferring to West Virginia is not on anybody's radar, but that's okay.
He'd be up there for me. I just don't know much about who he's got around.
Take me
him.
home.
I wish him nothing but the best. I like JT a lot. I'll be rooting
All
for
right.
him.
Yeah, for sure. Go Dogs always. But he got a ring, so he's probably not going to get
Got a
another
ring.
one, but that's okay. Mr. Gerbig, we can start with you for this because I know we did a little bit of Heisman talk on the last one, but I want to hear maybe either your Heisman favorite or maybe a couple guys you think should be on early Heisman watch.
Yeah, I mean, I think most of the college football world understands it's a two-man race, right? It's Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, just like it was last year. Their stats were pretty comparable last year, and they probably will be again this year. But outside of those guys, if I were to add a third and maybe a fourth, my third would definitely be Will Anderson. That dude is a beast. And if we're talking just a football player, he's probably the best in the country, right? Obviously, the quarterbacks are going to get the attention and stuff, but that dude, in terms of a pro prospect, is everything the NFL teams want, right? Last year had over 100 total tackles, had 17 and a half sacks, which, mind you, Chase Young's best year at Ohio State was 16 and a half sacks, and he's a defensive end. So the fact that Will Anderson had 17 and a half, add on 31 tackles for loss, which is second most all time in a single season, the dude's just a dog, and he's going to continue to be. So having Bryce Young on offense and Will Anderson on defense is unfair. And then kind of a lower, like in preseason odds, this guy's a lot lower, but Bijan Robinson at Texas. I think people see him as a really good pro prospect running back. And if Texas wants to be good this year, he's going to have to carry the load, right? He's going to have to be big time. He's going to have to be Hassan Haskins last year, right? So, yeah, I think Bijan, I think he's pretty low in the odds, but he's incredible. He's one of the best running backs in the country.
Yeah, the odds I'm looking at right now have him at plus 1,600, and I think that's a lot to do with just the two-man race that is CJ Stroud and Bryce Young. But they do have Caleb Williams at 3 in the betting odds. But Mr. Bell, how do you see the Heisman race kind of playing out?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with a lot of what Logan said. I don't think it's not like a Bama bias or anything. I'm just going to rule out Bryce Young. That's just a personal thing. I just don't think they'll give it to the same guy twice. I know he's up there. It's boring. I don't think they'll do it. So I would definitely think CJ Stroud's probably my favorite, but also, I mean, y'all know, probably sound more like a USC fan today than I do a Georgia fan. I really like Caleb Williams. I think he very well could be up there. I mean, he's got some good receivers. Obviously, Jordan Addison transferred there. But if a running back is doing it, I do love Robinson from Texas, just like Logan just said. I don't think Texas is going to be as good as other people do, but I think that means he's going to stand out even more. And I said 9-3, and maybe he'll be the sole reason that they do beat Baylor or they do beat Oklahoma, and he can kind of have his Heisman moment. That's probably my top 3. I wish I could give you kind of a sleep. I don't know, it's just a high. I mean, it's a boring award. I have a hot take on the Heisman if I can go off on a very small tangent.
Do it.
Because I know we need to wrap up. I don't think there has to be a Heisman every year. I think we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
I think that's how elite the Heisman could even be, is you don't have to have one every year. Because prior to Bryce Young just calling it what it was, just destroying us in the SEC championship, no one really knew. Like, that was his Heisman moment. But if that didn't happen, I have no idea what last year would have been. I don't think you have to have one every year. But obviously, this is real life. You do, and I do think it'll be CJ, Caleb Williams, or Robinson.
Yeah, and that's the top 3 in the betting odds. But I will tell y'all, I'll ask y'all: would you put money on plus 2,500 odds for JT Daniels to win the Heisman?
I was just looking at that. I was just looking at that. I mean, they're going to be down. He's going to be slinging it.
Yeah.
Purely for the fact that your team has to be good? No. But yeah,
Okay.
he could definitely put up 350 yards a
And-
game, but they go 6-6, it won't matter. So,
And that's what worries me about Robinson is I don't think Texas will be that good. Whereas I think
right.
Ohio
Yeah,
State,
they're going
I
to have
think,
to be good. Yeah.
I think USC is going to be very good. That's why I think Caleb Williams could be up there. And I could be wrong. That might be a
And,
dumb take.
yeah.
I just don't think they'll
Yeah.
give it to somebody back to back. Like I wouldn't even put any money on
Yeah.
Bryce Young just because of that. That might be a dumb take. I just think that's boring and they won't do it.
Yeah. I mean, he could put them in a situation where they have no choice.
No,
right?
for sure. Yeah.
Like, I mean, I'm looking at his last year's stats, 4,800 yards, 50 total touchdowns. I think 47 of those were passing and only 7 interceptions. If he ups that to like 55 total touchdowns, 60 total touchdowns, like Joe Burrow, right? They got no choice. So it should be good. And I mean, we'll see what happens with non-conference too, right? Because when Bama and Ohio State are up 50-0 at the half to these lower teams, they're not going to keep playing them, so that could really affect the final stats for the Heisman. So
Yeah, for sure. Well, we're gonna wrap up really quickly by just saying like who we're gonna pick for the big games in week 1. This list is brought to you by Logan Gerbig himself. It is 7 games. So really quickly, Mr. Gerbig, Penn State at Purdue, who is winning this football game?
Purdue, boiler up. Purdue's
Okay.
pulling off the week 1 big time win to start the year.
Mr. Bell, who do you have in that matchup?
In state.
I also have Penn State, so I guess we're rolling with Penn State as a podcast collective, but Mr. Gerbig will still have his say. Cincinnati at Arkansas. Cincinnati at Arkansas. Mr. Gerbig, who do you have?
I really wanted to pick Cincinnati here, and I still do. I'm going to be rooting for them, but I'll pick Arkansas.
Mr. Bell?
Arkansas for sure. I think it could be a good game, but Arkansas, yeah.
I have Arkansas as well. SEC bias plus Cincinnati lost Sauce Gardner. They just, I don't know, probably won't be the same team. I guess also Desmond
and their
Ridder,
whole
yeah.
quarterback, yeah.
Yeah. Sauce. Oregon at UGA, Mr. Gerbig. I already know what me and Mr. Bell's answers are.
Yeah, I've actually got UGA. So I think we got a sweep there.
We were gonna have to extend this podcast by about 15 minutes. But, I know. Okay, so we're all gonna go with the sweep. I'm pretty sure probably the more interesting question would be how lopsided this is gonna be. But we'll talk about Utah at Florida, Mr. Gerbig. Who do you have?
Utah. I'm rolling with Utah. I think part of me feels like Florida's going to win this game simply because it's in the swamp, right? It's like opening game in the swamp against top 10, but I think Utah's a better team, so I'm going Utah.
Yeah, Mr. Bell.
Utah, and I think it gets ugly.
That's what I hope to see. I hope Utah beat the brakes off of Florida.
I just really like AR-15. So
yeah, but we hate Florida.
I know, but
okay.
Well, that's not
me.
even biased. I just
me.
think Florida's going to be bad. I think Utah's going to crush them.
Yeah, Utah.
Beautiful. Mr. Gerbig, I know it probably pains you to have to pick this game, but a top 5 matchup in week 1, Notre Dame at Ohio State. Who's winning?
Honestly, doesn't pain me as much as you might think. Ohio State, big. I hope Notre Dame can't play another football game after week 1 because that's how bad it was, right? Ohio State, yeah. Kill them.
Yeah.
Kill Notre
Mr.
Dame.
Bell.
Ohio State, very, very big.
Yeah, I have Ohio State as well.
And part of that is because it's not a Big Ten game, so it doesn't matter. Even if Ohio State loses, that doesn't help us, right? We still have to beat them the last week of the season. So,
true.
Yeah, Notre Dame, get them out of here. They lose a game, they can't make the playoffs. Get them out.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. Ohio State, just poor first game for Notre Dame and their new head coach.
Yeah. Sorry, Marcus.
Yeah. Mr. Gerbig, Florida State at LSU. Who's winning?
What an ugly Sunday football game. But I mean, it'll be hype first week of the season. I love having a game every day of the weekend. But LSU, I don't think either of these teams will really be that good throughout the year. Maybe they improve a little bit, but LSU in this one.
Mr. Bell, who do you have?
Florida State. Just so we can see if Grant or Drew are listening. Florida State.
Okay, I was gonna roll with LSU to make my friends Drew and Grant happy. That was gonna be my reasoning.
Oh,
So I'm glad
gotcha.
that you rolled with that answer. And then the last game, I think we'll all be able to pick for Mitch as well. But Clemson at Georgia Tech, Mr. Gerbig, who do you have?
Clemson, DJ Uiagalelei is going to start off his season better and maybe not throw for 10 interceptions and only 9 touchdowns again this year.
Very true, Mr. Bell.
Clemson.
Yeah, I have Clemson as well. It's definitely a lot easier starting off against this team from Georgia than the one they started off against last year. But that's going to do it for episode 13 and this episode, or this college football episode. Thank you all for listening, and fellas, thank you all for joining me, and RIP Mitch.
Yeah.
Oh.
See ya. Go Blue.
Yeah.